She then enters the fortune house and finds the notebook from Douglas's missing persons investigation. Just after leaving the fortune house, Heather finds another note from her father dated some 17 years prior. Heather finds both of these notes are yet another confirmation that the protector and father figure in her life are the very same essence, even though they remain two distinct and different people. In fact, I tend to think of Douglas and Harry as parallels to Cheryl and Alessa, two completely different sets of characters converging with overlapping similarities. Soon afterwards, Heather finds herself on the carousel where she must confront Dark Alessa. Just as the very beginning of Silent Hill 3 shows us, the story has nearly come full circle, with Heather going into the deepest and most painful part of her psyche, where she must contend with the darkest parts of herself. If she survives, she will have emerged with a newfound awareness through the acceptance and integration of her own shadow. Dark Alessa is the culmination of Alessa's most horrendous and painful memories. She appears to be partly inspired by Shinigami, or the Japanese death god. We do know that Team Silent took some inspiration for Dark Alessa from a few Italian horror movies from the 1960s. And in that sort of tradition of campy B-movies, Heather must fight a dark version of herself, which is really just Alessa having a conflict with herself. So the convoluted nature of this plot line from Silent Hill has always seemed rather like a bargain bin movie material with all that soul-splitting stuff and all that stuff that's going on. But of course, we have to suspend disbelief in order to accept the premise and begin to appreciate the story. After Heather defeats the dark version of herself, she finds a note that has been left behind. But of course, where Silent Hill 3 really shines is the character development and the emotional complexity, as well as the use of some compelling character archetypes. So we can forgive this goofy notion of soul splitting in half and all that comes with it in exchange for 3 really great Silent Hill games, or at least 2 great Silent Hill games. After vanquishing Dark Alessa, Heather wanders down a long corridor littered with religious writings on the walls. She eventually finds her way into the chapel, appearing to take Claudia by surprise. And is it me, or does Claudia look like Brent Spiner from Star Trek: The Next Generation? She always just kind of, maybe it was the lack of eyebrows or something, but Claudia looks like Commander Data from The Next Generation with a wig. It's just very bizarre. This chapel is very interesting because it's at the end of a very long corridor, which indicates it may possibly be underground and is hidden from unwanted visitors. However, Heather has to climb many steps in order to reach the entrance, which doesn't seem to make sense, since the location of the chapel cannot be confirmed on the map. So what exactly is going on here? We need to take a step back and think about what just happened between Dark Alessa and Heather to fully understand what is going on. After Heather defeats Dark Alessa, this mysterious tunnel appears out of nowhere. By looking at the surrounding environment, the walls and floor of the tunnel have every indication that Heather is still in the other world. However, the textures are no longer moving as they were before, almost as if the other world has now changed and has been put on pause. But why? The other world changes immediately after Heather vanquishes Dark Alessa, of course. So we are being shown that Alessa's memories have been sufficiently integrated into the hero. Remember that the hero must acknowledge and integrate their shadow in order to grow and move on. It's one of the oldest story dynamics in human history, and it's something I covered in great detail in my first Silent Hill series. Through vanquishing the shadow self in a direct confrontation, if the hero survives the encounter, then it means they have accepted and fully integrated this dark side of themselves. This is why we are shown the other world in stasis. Also, it no longer haunts Heather. Through her battle with her shadow self or true self, she has come to understand and accept who she is and what she must do. This is the point in the game where Heather has gained a new insight and heightened level of awareness. And this is the reason why she ascends upward to meet Claudia, with whom she is now on equal footing with, and is preparing for the final confrontation. So the actual location of the chapel doesn't matter. Now, Claudia is completely unaware of what just happened with Heather in the previous scene where she has this conjunction and transformation. She chooses to ignore the possibility that Heather has indeed reached a higher level of awareness in her own right. Instead, Claudia credits Vincent as being responsible for Heather finding her. However, the path was laid before Heather as a consequence of her confrontation and vanquishment of Dark Alessa. Now, Heather tells Claudia that she is Alessa, and they proceed to have it out regarding the philosophy of religion and Claudia's own convictions. Heather tells her that suffering is just a fact of life, something which Claudia is not prepared to accept. This indicates that Claudia is incapable of integrating her own shadow self as Heather just has. As Heather is doubled over in pain from the embryo of God growing inside of her, Claudia asks Heather a very important question. You despise me, don't you? Now, Heather confirms this fact, to which Claudia responds, that's good. For this dark ceremony to be carried out and a God to be born upon the earth through great suffering, Heather must carry hate in her heart. So in this respect, Claudia still has one up on Heather. And it is through Heather's hatred and wish to seek revenge that she can be manipulated further along the dark path